All right, you guys, what's going on? This is Blaze here, the Blue Chip Athletic Club podcast. I'm stoked to welcome Emma to the show. We're going to chat about her all things health and wellness here today. But I want to start off and make sure that we give a couple plugs. One, our sponsors for now, at least First Form for all of our supplements. We'll be working potentially to expand that or pivot to that. JSF Nutrition, we'll see how it goes. Maybe you can tell me a little bit about it since you've been probably an avid user. We might be partnering up with those guys as well. We've got kind of a big old box on the way. Sweet Perfections protein cookies, where we get all of our stuff. They'll ship it to you anywhere that you want. Dash Track, if you're trying to build a website and you're a business owner, please hook them up. They'll hook you guys up with a really awesome product. And then Logbook for any of the pilots out there. If you guys are looking to get a pilot flight logbook, we use Log 10, which is turning into Pilot Base. Really excited to share that with all of my fellow aviators out there. Everything else will be in the show notes. We're excited to welcome Emma on. Dude, tell us a little bit about you, where you're from, origin story as far back as you want to go, and then we can get going with some of the questions and things that I kind of wanted to hit on.
Perfect. Hi guys. I'm Emma. I'm actually born and raised in Arizona, which is kind of an anomaly because no one that lives in Arizona is actually from here. We got a lot of Bears fans. I'm a strength and conditioning coach. I recently switched to my niche, which is youth female athletes. I grew up playing sports my entire life, competitive and travel. I played softball. Now I do martial arts, mostly boxing, and I love doing a lot of sprint work, mostly to keep up with my athletes and make sure that coach is up there too. But yeah, that's just a little bit about me, little spiel.
Yeah, dude. I've heard that from a lot of people. They're like, "Oh yeah, nobody who lives in Arizona is from there." It's pretty interesting that you're saying like, "Oh yeah, it's the total sentiment." Like a lot of people in Chicago would be like, "Chicago's way too cold for me, dog. I'm moving to the heat."
Yeah, I was just at a run club on Saturday, and almost every single person that I met was from Chicago, and I was like, what is going on here? No one is ever from Arizona. I'm a rare breed, I suppose. I want to stay in the heat. I'm crazy enough too, I guess.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. And youth athletes, what an interesting thing. So you said you grew up playing softball. Tell me about that. Like, did you travel a bunch all over? Were you staying kind of local to Arizona? Like, what was your kind of sports experience? Because I've worked with youth athletes in the past too. Some of the people listening may know that I've done a lot of lacrosse coaching at various levels, all the way up to collegiate, down to like where we're using high school guys traveling all over the country, and really enjoy doing that. I'm sure you enjoyed it too. Probably as part of the reason why you want to continue to work with them, I would assume. But tell me about like your specific character arc when it came to sports and health, because I feel like everybody's is kind of different and unique.
Yeah, well, so I grew up playing softball. I actually was so not into sports. My best friends at the time convinced me to play, and I was bawling my eyes out on the way to practice, screaming at my parents saying that I did not want to go. And of course, I went and I ended up loving it. So that was fourth grade. And then that kind of changed the entire trajectory of my life. I became obsessed with anything to do with movement and just being an athlete. So I grew up playing softball, got into club. Then we started traveling as a team. So, going all over the country, especially during the summertime. No one likes to play here. So we would go to Colorado Sparkler, which is happening right now. That's a huge tournament. It's one of the biggest recruiting tournaments that we have. There's over 1,500 teams, 500 plus college coaches. It was always the most nerve-wracking situation looking into the stands, and you see, Texas A&M and Oregon State, Arkansas, Alabama, like just all the the Pac-12 schools. But yeah, just getting to know my teammates and having that special bond and pressure just created privilege. And then I ended up actually playing in my high school team with a lot of the same girls that I played club with. So we had a super special bond, lots of really good chemistry. We spent like every waking moment together. Senior year, we had a freshman pitcher come in, and there was, there's always talk about like, oh, like this girl's going to be so good, whatever. And we're like, yeah, sure. Well, she was that good. We faced her during live at bats, and all of our starters struck out looking. So that was a very humbling experience. We ended up going all the way through. Her ERA was like 0.001, and she also was batting over 500. So we were like, okay, this girl really is who she says she is. We call her Goose. Shout out Goose. She's awesome. But yeah, we always joke because our coach put her on JV, and so she never had a varsity poster. So we're always like, how's it feel being a freshman JV starter? And then we went on, and first time in our school's history, we won our state championship. And fun fact, I broke my arm 9 days before, and I still played. So that's kind of my hero story, I guess. It was
How
very
does
unfortunate.
that work, dude? I don't even understand. How did that discussion go with your folks? I'm imagining like you like pleading or like you had to have broken something that wasn't like super detrimental to you being able to play. No, like
Yeah, so broke my arm, I heard it snap. I knew it was broken, but I was like, let me just convince myself that it's not. I begged my parents not to take me to the ER because I was like, it's not broken unless they say it is. So I just can't have that slip because obviously AIA is not going to let me play regardless of what I say. So, like the good parents that they are, they took me to the ER, and they were like 6 weeks, hard cast, like definitely no chance of playing in the state championship. And I was like, yeah, right. So we ended up finding a sports doctor, and he was the one that was like, listen, dude, take it off in 6 days. The way that I broke it, I was super lucky. And he was saying that now they actually are finding that they want to get you out of the cast faster and create some movement. That way you get a little bit more blood flow and circulation so it can start the healing process. So I was like, sounds good to me. You don't have to tell me twice. So took the cast off 6 days. I had to sit there during our semifinals game, which was the most intense game ever. And I looked at our pitcher and I was like, I swear to God, if you don't get us out of this inning, I might kill you. And so we ended up winning that game 1-0 in bottom of the 7. So that was really cool. Went to play at ASU. I somehow convinced my coach to let me play and that I was fine. Um, so we did that. We ended up winning state championship, which was really cool, full circle moment for me. I grew up watching all the games at ASU all the time. And so never in my life did I imagine that I'd be playing on the same field. So that was super cool. Ended up going back the next year to coach, got myself another ring. And then that's when I was like, okay, yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to start getting back into, the youth female and taking everything that I've learned now as well, I like to call myself an adult, and giving back to the next
you're
generation.
never really one, right? Unless you really buy in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. So getting able to like live that full character arc of going from, hey, we started this as a girls through, you said you're in 4th grade when you started truly, and then you're playing in high school with them, and then you get to go and like get a ring and then go back, you're assistant or some sort of coach helping the team, and then get one as a coach as well, which probably felt great too. And now you're kind of leaning into the niche and trying to kind of understand like how you can help more people. I'm sure it's not just softball players too at this point, right? It's kind of like expanded. Tell me about how that like growth process has been to, and I know our mutual friend, the reason that we are on the podcast in general, Jeremy over there, like how did that go? Kind of starting to work with him and then develop this thing that is now like your baby. And I think, would you call it Strong Her program, which is pretty
Yeah.
clever, dude. It's clever.
Thank you. Yeah, so like I said, graduated high school, knew that I was not going to play in college. So, and at the time, there wasn't really a lot of opportunity, especially past, the collegiate level. Pro was just becoming a thing, which is crazy because it wasn't that long ago. But I was like, I kind of want to just get straight into this. I knew I wanted to train, so I got my certification right during the summer, right after I graduated. I was super lucky, got the opportunity to work with a bunch of elite level athletes, including NFL, collegiate all the way down to 5th grade. And I absolutely love that. I was like, this is definitely what I was put on this earth to do: coach, help people, and just the competitive aspect of it. I loved. Then, you kind of fall trap and you're like, okay, well, it would probably be easier to do general population. So I left that facility, started to do my own thing, wanted to work into more of the GP side. And then I ended up meeting Jeremy, and started working for him. And we were just kind of talking. I make him go and meet with me all the time, just because he's such a good mentor, and he's so well immersed in the fitness industry. He always
Dude,
laughs
call
and
him old, dude. Call him old, and then if he ever listens, you'll be able to like call it back and be like, "Hey, bro, you're old in this space, dog."
he always makes fun of me. He's like, dude, I've been doing this longer than you've been alive. And I was like, this is
Yeah, yeah.
literally true. So just trying to take what I can, learn from the best. And I always would talk about how much I missed being in the industry with athletes. And my mom used to always tell me, she's like, your face just lights up whenever you talk about helping these kids and like working with them. So as scary as it was, I was like, you know what, I just need to go for it. And so Jeremy helped me kind of create a business model, to switch to this niche, which was the youth female athlete side of things. It was something that I just really felt passionate about, and something that I saw was just missing. I've played with so many girls that have had knee injuries in particular. You're always hearing about ACL tears, meniscus. Like, I went back to my old high school team, asked them to raise their hand on who had a knee injury, and I mean, you can imagine every single hand was raised, which is just absurd and heartbreaking to me, right? Because you should never have to end your career because of an injury and instead of choice. So I was like, I'm gonna be the one to take initiative and make sure that these girls know that this is now mandatory. You can't just get by with talent alone. With the amount of volume that they're playing, these girls are playing up to 13 games in a singular weekend, which is just absolutely absurd. And when you don't have the strength training, and your body can't keep up with the capacity and the volume, you're asking for trouble. So we're asking 13-year-olds to have the schedule of a professional athlete, but no nutrition plan, no strength program, no recovery protocol, none of the extra tools that they get to have. And so I was like, you know what, this is something that I really feel the need to tap into and do. But I was really scared at first because, no one's been doing it. So I'm like, maybe there's a reason that people haven't tapped into this industry, and I shouldn't do it. But you know what they say, the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. So, Jeremy kind of convinced me to just pop in, and worst case, I just can resort back to what I was doing. And you know what? It was the best decision I've ever made. I've gotten super good feedback. We're actually in the last week of my first block of Strong Her. These girls have done so amazing. Like, I literally have chills with how proud I am of them. And I wanted to make something different, not something that was just, strength and speed, because I truly believe that anybody can create a program. So I wanted something that was different and focusing on the mental aspect of sport as much as the physical. I know that growing up, I always suffered with confidence in particular, fear of judgment, fear of failure, and I let it hold me back as an athlete. And I think that if I just had a coach or someone that could kind of believe in me and show me what I was truly capable of, I think that would have allowed me to excel in my career just astronomically. And so obviously I can't go back. All I can do is move forward and share this with the upcoming generation. So that's kind of what the Strong Her idea is all about.
Dude, yeah. I had a lot of things I just started writing down, like a couple notes that I was thinking of too as you were saying that. Like, in coaching youth athletes, how fun is it? For sure, I agree.
I
I
love
think dude, there's nothing better. I don't know if I've actually shared this story. The reason that this business is called Blue Chip Athletic Club is because I started working with kids, and a blue chipped athlete, as I'm sure you know, is somebody who's going to go to college and play Division 1 sports on a full ride, essentially. So that's what like founded the name for this and what we were doing, and the model eventually. I'm hoping to have like a facility where part of it is turfed out and the other part is like, family, I'll call like open free weights classes. And then like kids pop in one side, they get to train with a softball specialist and Emma. And then like maybe somebody else is like a swim coach and they can help train that kind of section of whatever. And then the other side, the parents get to go in, they get to do their thing. Maybe they're doing a yoga or a Pilates class or spin or a hit class or whatever they're kind of doing. And then they can kind of leave as one after the hour is up and the small group training happened for the kid. The parents got their stuff done. So that's eventually like down the line, I think kind of a model that I want to emulate at some point. But I have so much fun coaching kids too because I feel like they're like sponges. The energy level like are great. I typically was working with like high school age kids for the most part too, and those guys like the amount of change that can happen is huge. And they obviously don't see it like just like adults don't see it the same way. But when you're able to take a photo or show them a metric or show something like different, I feel like it just like motivates them like crazy. And I always felt when I was in my athletic youth that some coaches like really didn't do a good job of giving like honest feedback of things that would make it like, this is what's going to make you so much better. Hey, maybe you have like really, really good IQ in softball, but your feet are like cement blocks and like you're slow getting out of the batter's box. And like if you were to able to do that, like you would steal X amount more bases because you're way quicker. These things help. So like let's focus on this for you because you have this strength already and you can lean more into that strength. And like those types of conversations I don't think happen enough at the youth sports level, like honestly with kids to like give them some direction, whether that's in strength and conditioning or on the field. And I get it, you're managing a lot of people. There's a lot of like dads and people that are filling in to coach as well, which maybe they don't have the requisite knowledge to do that. But I wanted to kind of get to another point that you brought up is like the importance of training in general. Like a lot of people, you're like, hey, dude, this is mandatory. You're working with girls that were in high school, and you're like, this needs to be something that's incorporated in some way, shape, or form. Tell me about how important you've seen that age specific training for those athletes as they grow up, because you're now programming for kids. I'm sure the age range is relatively broad. So tell me how that's kind of been working and how you've worked that into the things that you're doing.
Yeah, so I for the longest time, there's been that stigma, right, where it's like you don't want kids to be weight training until a certain age because it's going to stunt their growth or, whatnot. And the more that the research comes out, the more that that's just appearing not to be true. And when we can
Bro, tell them
develop
fake news, dude. You can say it. You can say it on here. You can say fake
It's
news.
it's all fake. The fitness industry, I always say, I'm like, the fitness industry is always just trying to lie to you. It's trying to sell you the next best thing. It's trying to sell you the next new fad. But it really is like caveman at its root, at its core. Common sense, even though it's not very common. But yeah, I mean, I love to start my athletes young. I always explain to my girls, I'm like, it's gonna be like an airplane taking off. We gotta start slow before we can start to transcend and take that initial takeoff, which I'm sure um, but
Familiar. Yeah, done it a handful of times.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So a lot of them start to get frustrated at the beginning because they're not used to not being good at something on the first try, and so that's something that we really make sure that we do, and we just kind of hammer them on the initial movement patterns. And we like to gamify a lot of it too, because when you're, 8 to 10 years old, you could care less about if you can do a 40-pound goblet squat, right? You want to be able to beat your friends. You want to be able to have fun and run around. And so that's kind of where the creative side comes in too, which I really like because I get to take my knowledge of, training and how to make sure that an athlete can get bigger, faster, stronger, more injury resilient, but turn it into a game where they don't even realize how they're actually growing. And so I've been able to come up with a lot of really cool resources and tools and games to help them develop those movement patterns without actually realizing that they have it. And then these kids, when their bodies are able to move in certain directions and patterns and sequences, then as they grow older, it just makes it so much easier to start being more specific. And then, after they choose their sport, which I do see is happening younger and younger, which I don't necessarily agree with the sport specificness. But junior, senior year of high school or on, I do think that, they're starting to choose which sport they want to play. And so then we can start getting into, for lack of better terms, sport specific. So, we're starting to lift heavier, maybe doing a little bit more higher intensity. But obviously, that also depends on the training age, which is like how long you've actually been in the gym for in training. So the younger that you can start, the better, because then we can just progress you and make sure that those habits don't start, and we're not having to start here, work backwards, and then work forwards. We can start from the starting point and then work towards the finish line. So the younger that you can start, ideally the better.
For sure. I heard this. I've done a course that's essentially through like the Exos training program. I'm not sure if you've heard of those guys, but they do a lot of Olympians, NFL guys, like similar things to what you were kind of doing after school. And those guys essentially will say like you can't put load on dysfunction. You can't like if you can't do a body weight squat, it's really not advantageous for you to do a barbell back squat or an overhead squat, because then you're just like you're opening yourself up to really hurting yourself. And I think that's one of the biggest things. Like kids are kind of goofy, like you're figuring out your balance, you're trying to like figure out how to like do things like normal things and kind of learn your body. And there's kids that are on different paths. Obviously, some kids are way more, athletic and understand like spatial orientation quicker than other kids. And I start to feel or see that those guys that are able to do that, they excel in a lot of those things, and some people aren't, and they're called like their bell curve or their development curve is a little bit later on. Maybe they're like 12 or 14, whereas someone else is like 8 to 10 when they start to figure those things out. So you can't load up a barbell with 200 pounds and expect a 10-year-old kid to be able to do that if they haven't started fundamentally, a couple years before then to be able to do it too. So yeah, I totally agree. Like you have to start somewhere, and making it fun, right? Oh my gosh. I can tell you there were times when I was playing sports and I was 8 and I had a coach that was like, just get on the end line and run wind sprint. And it was like the worst. It was the most demoralizing thing ever. You can get a lot of benefit of cardiovascular training in without doing wind sprints. Like let it be known, like there's 100 ways to do that. You can make it fun. I mean, you can put 2 echo bikes in front of each other and a foam roller between them and have them like row the echo bike and try to see where the foam roller goes, and like playing again. Like you can make things like that make it fun for them. And I don't think that was something that a lot of coaches did back in the day. Maybe it's something that's developing as people start to get more creative and there's more information out there too. Maybe social media, that's a benefit of having YouTube and all these other things where you can Google like, hey, great drill to create a quick step for kid playing softball to get out of the batter's box or whatever your kind of niche becomes. We started using, and I actually use it on adults too, and you should look into it. I'll send you a link to. We are not affiliated with this company in any way, but I bought something called the OVR. Have you heard of this company before?
Yes.
Oh, dude. So we've got one at home, and it like will basically like it'll measure like a bunch of different things. The one that I really like to use is the jump tool. So we'll be able to test like people's vertical jump, like their reactive strength, like a couple of those types of metrics too. And it's funny when, kids are jumping, trying to see how high they can jump in a vertical, and they're going like one after the other after the other. Like people get competitive, adults get competitive. You get competitive with yourself, with each other. And then if you measure that on day 1 and you measure it on day 30, and it goes up, it really is motivating for people too. So I was like, dude, definitely be something good to look into for you if you haven't thought about it.
Yeah, no, I love those. I also have this new, I don't know if it's new technology, but it's new to me. They're called Blaze Pods. Have you ever heard of them?
What are they called?
Blaze Pods.
Oh,
So
no, but I should get a trademark deal from those guys. What the hell? That's ridiculous.
yeah, so the OVR and the Blaze Pods are really cool devices that you can use, and I think that at at everybody's core, we can always say that we're pushing our hardest, but when we're by ourselves versus when we're competing against another person, somehow we always end up being able to push just a little bit harder when there's some sort of
Yeah,
competitive
dude.
aspect in it. So it's like you think that you're, pushing your hardest, but then as soon as you're going against another person, you just somehow end up pushing past that limit, right? So that's what I
Yeah,
love
dude.
with my girls is I've noticed that like especially numbers and metrics, something that they have to compare it to versus me just being like, all right, you're going to do lateral shuffles for 5 sets. And they're like, okay. And they just kind of go through the motions versus I'm like, this is going to be your initial time. Then I didn't tell them, but I'm like, every time after that, you have to beat it. Otherwise, you have 10 push ups. And suddenly they got a little bit faster. So we love to use those games. But I also love the OVR because, a lot of the times we like to lie to ourselves and say, that we're more fatigued or overtrained, right? And so if we can get that vertical jump where you're just giving me 3 vertical jumps at the beginning of each session, those are some really good metrics to make sure that the central nervous system as well as our musculature is all good and intact, and I can kind of use that as a tool to know if you're lying to me about how tired you are and you're just lazy, right? Especially my high schoolers and my younger girls are like, yeah, I'm tired. I'm like, okay, well, there's a difference here, right? And also they're just too young to understand, when to take the foot off the gas and when to step on it. So I love using the OVR for that purpose as well. Unfortunately, I don't have one right now, but it is something that I'm definitely gonna invest in. But yeah, just anything to provide metrics and numbers and competition and something that you can compare it to, as well as proof of work, right? So when we take those metrics from the first session versus the last session and you see how much you grow, it's exciting, it's motivating versus just doing the same thing day in and day out. As adults, we forget what it's like to be a kid, and we take our lives so seriously and everything's like dull and whatever. But I don't believe in that. I think that kids should be kids and we should train them like that. And we should, if I can get the same results, if not better, while having fun, then I don't see any problem with that. And I always laugh with my girls because at the very beginning of week 1, they're like not talking, they're super quiet. I'm like, listen, guys, I'm not the coach that's going to sit here and yell at you if you guys are talking. Now, if you're talking while I'm talking, then there's a problem. But they all know that everything is cool to have fun and be competitive as long as we get our work done. And you can ask any single one of them. And I always tell them, I'm like, what's my rule? And they'll always tell you that you can have fun as long as you get your work done and you work hard. And so I think that we push ourselves more when we're having fun too, versus when we're like, oh, okay, another set. Like, I don't know, at least personally I do. And I've noticed that with my girls. So we try to keep a really fun, energetic, and competitive environment. And I feel like that's been ultimately successful for the Strong Her program. So
Yeah, dude, it's huge. I couldn't agree more. It's honestly the same with adults. Adults are just big kids, and they love the same stuff. Any adult that tells you they don't like a prize or like to compete with somebody else, like if they played sports, especially and have a sports background, you're just lying. You're just lying to yourself. You're lying to other people. I completely agree. But dude, you actually started to hit on something as well, like weight training, especially like for women that you talked through before. So tell me about that. Like, dude, talk about like a space that I feel like has come so far from maybe like even when you were a kid, but especially like, when Jeremy was a kid, like back then, like you're talking like 40, 50 years ago, women are like, hey, they're just supposed to go running and like do, whatever cardio style of movement patterns and go to yoga or whatever. And now I feel like there's a lot more emphasis on women weight training in general. And then also like starting to incorporate that in sport too. So talk to me about like, oh, the women are gonna lift and they're gonna look bulky. And I love the line. It'll never not make me smile. But tell me about the like bulky woman fear, the whole like weight training in women and how that's kind of morphed into what we know in 2026 to be true. Because I think it's really important for people to know that for not only themselves as you're fighting, osteoporosis in your later age and, just not falling and breaking bones because you've got musculature to kind of protect yourself, but also like you're having your kids be more effective athletes, set a better example, live a longer life. I mean, we could talk about life expectancies for people with more and less lean muscle mass. Like that's real data that's published now. So hit me, dude. I know you probably know a lot about it because I'm sure you get the question all the time.
Yeah, it's funny because literally the session that I had before this, we were already talking about this. Like my girl, I've been training her for a while now, and she's always talking about wanting to get smaller. I'm scared to get this. I don't like this. Like I don't want to lift heavy because I'm gonna get bigger. And I'm like sitting there, and you kind of just have to let them talk to themselves because like nothing that you're gonna say is gonna change their mind. All you can do is just show them. And then I was listening to a podcast also on my way here, but yeah, I think that's the toughest part. I do definitely see a shift. I think that more and more women are becoming aware of the fact that strength training is a necessity, and we can't get away with just Pilates and yoga and walking. Not to, I think that there's a time and a place for that, absolutely. But I do think that every woman needs to be participating in strength training. Like you said, the osteoporosis thing is real, and skinny is trending and it's coming back, and it's really scary. I went to high school with a lot of athletes that I see now on Instagram, and I'm like, whoa, they're like this big. It just looks really unhealthy, and I always am wondering why that's a thing. And so my huge thing that I've been preaching is strong is the new sexy, right? Every woman wants that toned look. And what they don't understand is that you could do all the cardio that you want, but if you have nothing built underneath that, you're just gonna look skinny fat. And that's like the worst because you're just in between the two. So I'm like, I'd rather be one or the other, right? Not both of them combined. And I think that a lot of women are scared to get bigger and get bulky, um, but I've noticed that it's beating a dead horse trying to explain to them that that's not going to be the case because they just don't eat enough. I had a girl the other day that was like, yeah, this new medication that I'm on makes you really nauseous. It's 5 p.m. by the way. And I'm like, well, what'd you eat today? She goes, a tomato. It's like, first of all, you're a psychopath for a singular tomato. And second of all, I have a feeling that it's a little bit more to do with how much or how little you're eating instead of the medication. And so I think trying to shift it to something where they're gaining instead of losing. No one wants to be a loser, right? And everything has been about like, I want to lose weight, I want to be smaller, I want to be skinnier, I want to, yada yada. And I've seen a much more positive impact when I've shifted their mindset to what can I gain. I think as humans, we're very growth oriented. We're always looking to grow, and we don't like any friction or punishment. And so if we can reframe our ideas into something that we can work towards instead of something that we're working against, we're more likely to be able to commit to it without being miserable. And also, we get excited about it. So I use this example all the time. I used to always want to run extra because I listen, I was victim too, right? Like I wanted to be smaller. I wanted to look like all these other girls. So I was like, I'm going to start running, that way I can lose a little bit of extra body fat, blah, blah, blah. And every day I would go to put my shoes on. I'm like, I really don't want to do this. I hate running. Like, this is just terrible. Versus now, I've reframed it into something where I want to be capable. I want to be capable of running 3 miles. I want to be capable of, going at this pace. I want my cardiovascular system to reap the benefits. And suddenly running is fun. I go to the run clubs, which we're running 3 miles in 100+ degrees. Never in my life would I find that enjoyable. But now that I've reframed it into something that's growing, I'm like, okay, well, now my athlete brain that is just constantly wanting to get better, 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 and high achiever, now I'm like, I get excited about it instead of being like, oh. And guess what? The craziest part is I see the same results that I would have had before, but now I'm actually liking my progress because I'm gaining instead of losing. And so I try to reframe that with a lot of my girls, and it's something that I've seen to be very beneficial. And then also just kind of scaring them, just making them aware of the fact that the smaller that you get, the less muscle that you have. Your muscle atrophy, your bone density is going to decrease, all the things. And that should be something that you're scared of. After a woman breaks her hip, when she's older, her life expectancy is 1 to 2 years. And we're more likely to fall, we're weaker, and movement is medicine. If you don't move it, you lose it. I've seen 70-year-olds that can do 14 pull-ups, which is insane. And I've also seen 70-year-olds that are in a wheelchair and are in nursing homes. And the difference is that one has been strength training for years and one hasn't. And obviously genetics play a huge role too, but if we can do something that we know is going to prevent something like that from happening, why would we not? I don't know about them, but personally I want to be able to walk up the stairs, or play with my grandkids, or pick something up, or sit down and stand up, or just be physically active without being in pain, or not being able to do so. That terrifies me. And so I think when we show people that side, instead of being like, oh well, society wants you to look this way, which no they don't, but for some reason that's the new fad. But yeah, I think that's the only way that we can do it, instead of being like, well no, you want to lift weights. Like, I don't know, people don't like change, and people don't like friction, so we just have to make it as frictionless and as simple and easy as possible. And also just educating people. The more that you know, the more you don't know what you don't know. So the more that you know, the more that you can understand, and the more that you can integrate that type of stuff into your life.
Yeah, and I feel like, the part of that too is women as they get older, I find that they end up tying a aesthetic to the weight that they were, or the to the scale in some way. So we've worked with plenty of women and they're like, "Oh yeah, I want to be, 122 pounds." And I'm like, that's one, oddly specific, but two, it was like, "Oh hey, why? Why 122 pounds?" And they're like, "Oh well, I just was like, I think that'll be like a good goal weight for me." And I'm like, okay, why is that a good goal weight? And then eventually we dig down asking enough whys to where they're like, oh, I was 122 pounds my junior year of high school. Look at this photo of me. I look so good. And we have that discussion. I'm like, oh, well, when you were a junior in high school, did you feel that good? Like, do you like, did you feel like you were at the peak, that you were happy with that aesthetic and look that you were at? And most of the time people were like, well, actually, no, I wasn't really happy about the way that I looked then. And then, starts to getting into the greater questions of why. And at the end of the day, most of the time people are looking for an aesthetic in the mirror and not necessarily a weight on the scale. So, hey, that 102 pounds really just means you look fit and healthy, and this was the time that you saw that, and this is the number that you remember, and you tie that emotion, that thing, that confidence, the emotion, all of those things kind of get tied to that, and then the scale ends up having that power over you. And for the dudes out there, it's way easier. I'm like, hey man, if you were to look like Rambo and the scale said 400 pounds, would you give a shit that the scale said 400 pounds? And every single dude unanimously is like, no, dude, I wouldn't care at all. Like, obviously not. And I think it's like super easy to think about that as well. Like, hey, if you look the way that you want, if you move the way that you want, if your clothes fit the way that you want, what does it matter what the scale says? So I think like progress photos and those things can be helpful. The scale can be a great indicator in the event that you're on a journey and you are super overweight and you need to like lose some of that for your health in general. I think that's helpful. But if you can kind of detach from that specific thing and looking at it that way as the only performative metric that says, hey, I've made progress, it sometimes can kick you in the balls and really, really hurt. Because, at the end of the day, if I go on a BMI calculator, which is also an awful health metric, it says that I am obese. I'm 200 pounds. I'm 6 feet tall. And it's like, oh yeah, you're on the obesity chart. You are not in a healthy range. But I know that to not be true based on body mass, true, like how much lean muscle mass we have, how I'm able to perform, the way that I look and move and feel. So I think like some of these metrics are kind of getting a little bit old, but it's our job, as health people to make sure that that gets publicized so that women and men aren't tying themselves to the scale and finding themselves like going down this deep, dark rabbit hole of, oh, I lost 2 pounds this week, but then I gained 2 pounds. And then now I'm like totally going to quit and because I'm frustrated. And I feel like that happens a lot.
Yeah, that is interesting. Something that, Jeremy and I talk about a lot is KISS. Keep it stupid simple, or keep it super simple, whatever. But there's people like us, right? Where we've been doing this for so long that now it's like I weigh every gram of my food, right? And this is for performance purposes, just to make sure that I'm hitting my goals, and so that way I can perform and be capable. But the average person doesn't even get enough protein or water or sleep or working out, right? And so it's like in our minds, we have to make things so complicated, but for them, he always says protein, produce, and water. And it really is so simple. But I think that people try to overcomplicate it. Because they don't realize how boring being healthy and fit actually is. But they also want something to blame. So I
It is
agree.
boring, dude. It is. It
It
100% is. It's funny.
it is, but yeah. So I think that that's tough, but I think just starting with something super simple that someone can stick to and then building off of that is also super helpful. I think that the scale, it's a great tool for certain cases, but for your average person that's just trying to look better, I think if they keep it as simple as just eating whole foods, moving throughout the day, strength training 3 times a week, it's not something where it has to be these extreme. I think social media has portrayed these just extreme cases in athletes, right? Where it's like we're comparing ourselves to them. And actually, Meredith, the other trainer, just posted a really cool Instagram post about this as well, where we're always trying to like optimize and comparing ourselves to these people that do this for, a living, or have been doing this for forever, and they're just genetic anomalies. And the average person isn't going to just wake up one day and decide to run a marathon for fun. So it's like, okay, well, I want to look good, I want to feel good, and I want to play good. In my case with the athletes. So like, okay, so what can we do? Let's fuel our body so we can feel good. Let's make sure that we're getting enough sleep so that we can recover, so that we can take that into the next day. Let's make sure that we're training hard 3 days a week, right? Let's make sure that our mindset's right and we're in the right headspace. We're trying things that challenge us and that make us less resistant to failure, because you can't grow without failure and staying in your comfort zone. So just keeping it like super simple to where, start with eating your protein goal. Like the amount of people that are eating, even with everything having protein in it now, including water, which we were just joking about, like, which is just absurd. Just eat some chicken or some steak. I'm a steak girl, but like just starting with something as simple as that versus trying to be into the extremes, which is like the cases of the scale and all that stuff. So
Yeah, dude, it doesn't have to be super complex, we like to say like shopping on the outside of the grocery store is a great place to start. Like if you can do 80% of your shopping along the outside, and every single one is set up exactly the same. That's the nice part. It's like you could be going into Whole Foods or you could be going into Food Lion, and it's like, yep, as long as you're on the outside, you're probably going to be okay. And at the end of the day, like that's where your bread and butter should be. To be able to make that progress over time, which at the end of the day, everybody's just trying to fight father time, that the cool thing about being somebody who's a former athlete is that sometimes you even get to play sports, and I wouldn't say it's super competitive, but semi-competitive sports in adulthood. I'm curious if you've been able to join any softball leagues and you still get after it over there in Arizona and kind of relive your glory days, if you will.
yeah, you know what? Every once in a while, I'll play in some co-ed games. My cousin and my family, they all play. So I'll try to hop in when I can. But I've been looking into something to compete in, and I'm so competitive, just by nature. And I've kind of taken that into the business route. But something physically that I've really been, wanting to do. I'm a power and explosive athlete. The endurance competitions don't really like do anything for me. I just have no interest in them. But I did just one of my friends sent me this new competition called Apex. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it sounds very intriguing. It's something that's a little bit more like power based athletes versus like a high rocks, which I think high rocks are cool too. But same thing, I'm just like not an endurance athlete, and I don't feel like running that much and like losing strength. Like I like being strong and powerful. So I'm like anything that I can that involves sprinting or lifting heavy is like right up my alley. And so I'm looking into Apex. We're trying to convince them to come out to Phoenix, since Phoenix is the hot spot for fitness right now. So yeah, that's something that I'm interested in. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, I actually I've heard about it. It looks like it'd be pretty fun. Definitely something that would be interesting to take part in. I think I saw them like sprinting. I want to say I saw like a deadlift. I may have seen like some sort of jump, whether that's high jump, with like a tape, kind of similar to what they do in like the combine. But yeah, I think maybe they might have even had like a 4 or 800 meter, even like slightly longer. Maybe it was like a mile run that you have to do. But yeah, definitely like shorter burst type deal. Almost seems like is that a sporting event? Isn't it called like a decathlon or something like that, where like people are track and field athletes where they compete in like triple jump and hurdles and a bunch of other things. Somebody's gonna end up fact checking me, and that'll be like, oh yeah, that's. But Apex seems pretty interesting. I'm into it. I've actually done the high rocks thing as well. I've done two of them.
Okay.
Um, I don't I don't want to like talk illy about it because I did enjoy them, but I think it's just becoming so big that if I have to get on like a wait list to go and do something like that, like it just like it takes the wind out of my sails a little bit, you know. Like I don't want to have to like be on a wait list and then have tickets sell out, and then if somebody's trying to scout me tickets to go to a event that I would potentially have to fly to anyway. But I had a lot of fun with them. I mean, it's a great way to train functionally at the end of the day. Most of those patterns are super safe, like for anybody who's like interested in training because of high rocks. I think it's great. Kind of is going to probably take the CrossFit route where like it got a lot of people interested. But I think it's a lot safer than somebody trying to snatch weight overhead who has never done any Olympic lifting ever. So yeah, I think it could be good. I'm actually going the opposite direction. I'm flirting around with doing a sprint triathlon and then trying to get into a half marathon. I think I'm like soft committed to doing one in October. And
Okay.
ironically enough, I'm coming off of two broken feet. I broke my feet a couple of weeks ago. Uh doing a backflip, which is something that I've done hundreds of times, but I landed incorrectly and broke my midfoot and my toe on the other side. So
Oh,
I'm coming off of that. This is actually my scooter sitting here right behind me, ready to rip around my house, and I'll be mending my body to be able to get back at it to be able to do it. So yeah, it's fun. I think having a challenge is important, like whether that's in sport, that kind of feeds that in competition when you're competing, you know, in softball or in whatever that sport becomes. And then once you leave competitive sports, like I was fortunate to play in college too, and eventually that goes away. And then it was like powerlifting was my like thing that I got into and really wanted to do. And then it was like something else. And now thankfully I get to play lacrosse still with the men's league, and I play like pickup basketball a lot too. And I've just picked up kiteboarding down here in the Florida area, and that is a super fun thing. Oh, dude, it's sick. It's
never
like
heard of
so you're on like a wakeboard, and you've got like a waist harness and like a handle, and the wind and the kite is essentially what like takes you out. It is super fun. I thought it was gonna be way dangerous and maybe slightly dangerous too, but it is a blast to go out there and do that. So I'm definitely a bit of an adrenaline junkie
just gonna say.
and definitely want the same thing though. I want like something that's going to challenge me, something that's going to like get me excited to go do it and then go after it. And sometimes it's going to push me out of my comfort zone. But I think like at the end of the day, people tend to live in that and then get really stagnant and dormant. And then you wake up and you're 40 years old and you're 40 pounds overweight, and then you like don't really recognize yourself, and you're like, man, I'm kind of a shell of my confidence and the things that I have going on. And I think if you can keep some of that like youthful energy that I feel like you have as well, which is awesome, like I definitely resonate with that too. I feel like it just takes you so much further. Just play, dude. Just play and enjoy the ride. I feel like that's like the way to do it, you know.
Yeah. I feel like my generation, so I just turned 21, and I feel like my generation is super, like, we have 0 to 100, right? You have the super high achievers that are like, you have to be absolutely miserable, working 18 hours a week, having no fun in order to be successful. And then you have the people on the complete opposite that just do absolutely nothing but sit around on the couch. Like, I was laughing, one of my friends from high school, we were catching up, and he was like, yeah, I'm so busy. He's like, I have an internship. He's like, it's 8 hours. I was like, oh, a day? He's like, no, a week. And I was like, so like an hour a day? He's like, yeah, it's crazy. So, it's kind of like the 0 to 100. And for a while, I got stuck in that trap where I was like, everything needs to be so serious in order for me to be successful and stay on track. And I have to create these like huge efforts all the time in order to find success. And I've been lucky enough to surround myself with people that are very successful, and they've told me that there's like other ways to do it. Like, yes, there's phases where you need to put your head in the sand and just grind it out, but also it's like, I'm the type of person that I can't be all work and no play. I'll work 16, 18-hour days for months on end, no problem, but I'm so miserable and I'm so burnt out that I don't have anything left in my cup to pour. And especially in our industry where we have to have the energy and the people skills, I just found that I work so much better if I just slowly chip away at things, and the consistency always compounds, and it doesn't take huge efforts if you can just do the same boring things every single day. And I've also noticed that success is more than just business and making money. Like, yes, obviously making money is super important because it gives us the freedom to give back to others, and also to just pour more into our business. But success is also with relationships, whether that's people, friends, romantic, family, a healthy body and a healthy mind. And so just being able to step back and not take life so seriously has seriously opened up so many doors for me, because I'm not as scared to take risks and fail and fall flat on my face, because I'm like, oh well, like, at least, like, you're only dumb if you make the same mistake. Well, I don't say twice, I say 3 times. But yeah, like, just not being afraid to make mistakes and fail, and just having fun with life, and just like playing this game, right? It's all a game. You don't have to play by the rules. The only way that you win is by not playing by the rules, which is something, as a rule follower, that was really hard for me to understand as well. But that's definitely something that I've been adapting to, and it's definitely reaped its benefits, because now I actually enjoy, the process, instead of being so miserable and just like, okay, here goes another day. And yeah, I've actually seen a lot more progress doing the YOLO and the risk taking with precautions, obviously. But yeah.
Yeah, I resonate with that too. I think I've always inherently been a bit of a risk taker, though. Thankfully, by nature, I'm definitely the opposite way. I've been a ready, fire, aim guy for a long time. But I think you're right, though, and like that athletes in general, people that are maybe they're type A and they really want to get stuff done, can get lost in that, like, I have to grind, I have to do all this stuff, and if I'm not like working hard, and miserable a little bit, then it's not working, and I'm not making a step in the right direction. It's not necessarily true. I definitely fell in the trap, and I'll give a quick story and then I'll let you go. I know we're supposed to keep it to an hour, but I was like reading nonfiction books when I first started my business like crazy. Like, I was like consuming them, like morning and evening. I was on this like tear where I was kind of like just reading all this stuff, and I basically would like start to go to bed and I'd be like, oh my gosh, like I'm supposed to like do more like things. Like, I'm supposed to get up and and cold plunge and run 10 miles and then this that and then work 18 hours in the day. And I got to this point where I felt like I was like almost two things: one, becoming like robotic, and two, definitely becoming burnt out. And I've got a very, very long battery life. Like, it is something that is that my wife would probably say is like a detriment to her own mental health for sure. But there's a long battery that I have, and it takes a long time for it to drain out, but inevitably it did do that. And I find that, like, if I'm able to take a step back and then change some of those things, or it's not just grind constantly. So I actually even I started to read fiction at nighttime so that I'm not like going to bed thinking about like I need to do business at 9 o'clock at night when my head's swirling from flying planes and managing 150 people on a hangar and then running a business and trying to pour into my life as well. It's like, hey, this thing actually helps me like take away, step back, put myself into this other life and this other like thing that kind of allow me to be a little bit more creative and not so robotic, because I felt like I was incredibly robotic in doing that. You start to just like not have as much empathy to people, I think, when you're just grinding and reading nonfiction that way too. So yeah, I definitely resonate with that. People have more fun. I think it's important, hide and scare somebody around the corner next time you see them and, and have fun doing it, because it's life is too short, dog. It is definitely too short.
It really is. And I think that, you know, the whole point of our life is to live it. And I think that we somehow lose that in translation. I think that social media in particular has caused us this impending doom feeling because we're just looking at people's highlight reels all the time. And I always talk about how much I hate social media. I'm on it so little that I actually have to set a timer to doom scroll because I am so like irrelevant. My girls make fun of me all the time because they're like, you're just old now. And I'm like, thanks. But to like stay relevant on my social media, I have to. But I just can't. Like my anxiety goes through the roof because I'm like, oh my God, all these people are already here and I'm here and I have to like, read 8,000 books and go to 4 years of college in this week. And like I do wonder what the science behind, the high achievers and the athletes of the world and that impending doom feeling and why we think that misery is a direct correlation with success. I am interested to see what the correlation is behind that, and it's a question that I've been asking for a while. But yeah, I have noticed like trying to unlearn some of those characteristics, and it's worked out in my favor because when I actually enjoy life and I enjoy the people around me, and I'm not into the super woo woo stuff, but I do believe in energy. And I've been seeing better feedback the more that I can produce outwards, and I'm being with the people that I love and spending times doing things that I love while also working, which is easy for me to say because I love what I do so much. I mean, I literally get to play with kids and watch them get better and make them feel and look better and have more confidence and whatnot. But um it's something that I've had to learn because I try to teach them that, right? And it's like I would never want to be the one who talks the talk but can't walk the walk. And so, life's too short to not have fun, and you might as well try to have some in the process because if you're in this for the long term, it's okay to consistently compound and not have to complete everything in the span of a week. So
For sure, dude. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, baby. That's the way to do it.
man, will we ever find out how? I don't know. How many licks
Yeah,
does it
no, no,
take
no.
to get
One bite at a time.
the
One bite at a time.
pop or
All right,
whatever?
dude. Do me a favor. Tell all these people if people wanted to listen to this and they're like, hey, I'm living in Scottsdale. I've got a kid that I want to come and see Emma because she's got the right thing going on. Tell people how they can find you. Support. Drop all your social media, whatever you want for the way to reach out, and then I'll leave all the stuff in the show notes for everybody as well.
Perfect. Yeah, easiest way to reach me is probably going to be through Instagram. I post all of my stuff on there. My Instagram is just emma.hollanti, Hollanti. I know it's kind of like a crazy last name. But yeah, I have my stronger programs. They're about 4-week blocks, and throughout those blocks, work on both the physical and mental aspects. I have lots of workshops. I have guest speakers. This last block, well, actually, my first block, we had a sports psychologist come in and talk about fear of failure and confidence, especially when it has to do with sport. And then we also did a raise your ceiling challenge where the girls had to earn a certain amount of points by stepping outside of their comfort zone, doing things that they wouldn't normally do. And a lot of them reaped the benefits from it. So every block, we kind of have something new, a new goal that they have to work through, a new guest speaker. The next one's going to be all about nutrition and protein, how we can recover and eat to fuel ourselves. But yeah, it's just a super cool opportunity. And I always joke with the parents. I'm like, we could be saying the same things, but I'm right and you're wrong because no teenage girl wants to listen to their parents. So it's always a good thing to have a female coach who apparently I'm still young and hip and swaggy, my girl called me. So I'm like, but
You
yeah,
haven't lost
so
it yet, dude. Don't worry. It's coming. It's coming. All right, you
yeah,
guys. Thank you for listening. Emma, thanks for popping on.
yes, thank you so much for
And
having me.
remember, you don't stop playing because you get old. You get old because you stop playing. And we'll see you guys next time. Peace.